I don't know how many times I've ever thought to myself, I was like, are these people insane? I do think to myself every now and then, I go, how are you guys opening these places and not having an idea, at least an idea of what you want to do or some sort of background knowledge on it?
Welcome to Dirty Linen, or should I say welcome back to Dirty Linen if you are a frequent listener. No matter what kind of listener you are, I definitely appreciate you putting me in your ears. My name is Dani Valent. I am a food journalist based in Melbourne, Australia. Perhaps that is obvious because you are a devoted listener to the show, but I don't know where you've come from. Perhaps you are a fan of my guest today and this is the first episode of Dirty Linen that you have ever listened to. I hope that my chat with Sam Pinzone, food consultant, is enticing enough for you to stick around for more episodes. I reckon it will be. Sam is a food consultant, a chef, somebody who dips his toe into restaurants all around town at all different levels, all different types of businesses. And as we continue to dig into this question of is hospitality broken, our big topic over the past few months, I reckon there is probably no one better to speak to than a professional who is in and out of lots of businesses. Sam is a return guest to Dirty Linen. I think we spoke to him in the depths of one or other lockdown. So Sam, I'm glad it's under different circumstances that we chat to you today. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me again, Dani. And it's, great to be back.
Yeah, great to have you back. So you always have a lot on the go. Tell us about your slate of projects at the moment.
Oh, well, at the moment I've got, I guess we'll start with the big one. I've been doing a little bit with Rockpool, Bar and Grill in Melbourne. One of my old, I guess back in the day he was a CDP, and I haven't worked or been in that kitchen since I was about maybe 20 years old. I started in there when I was 17. And back then, Rodney was a CDP. And now he's come back and he's the head chef. And he's sort of was like, hey, we want to try and bring it back to that sort of two-hat level. We want to see if we can bring some of the older guys back. We want to train some of the other chefs in the kitchen, the younger guys, bring the level up a little bit. And I thought, sure, I'll come in and I'll jump in and I'll see how I go. And that's been quite interesting, getting back into that kitchen and seeing just, I don't know, it almost feels a little bit, it feels smaller, even though the thing's exactly the same. All the equipment's still the same. The place looks exactly the same. The only difference is there's no Neil Perry, there's no Khan, and I'm at least 15 years older.
So it's so interesting, Sam. Like it's like, going back to your old school, things look kind of the same but kind of different, and it highlights how you've changed yourself over those intervening years. I actually met Rodney Mom, the incoming head chef at Rockpool in Melbourne, for the first time earlier in this week, and he told me a couple of stories about you.
I'm sure he did.
When you guys were working there back in the day, it was hard yards. It was those early morning starts, those after midnight finishes, and he mentioned that he learnt that you were spending those sleeping hours in your car.
Yeah. When I was a kid, well, I used to drive from Mornington, so. And I don't think I'd be able to do that these days. It's just, I think the traffic now is just terrible. But back then it would take me it was a good an hour and a bit drive home. And when you start it, you start at I used to get there at 5 a.m. sometimes because I wanted to learn butchery. I wanted to learn the fishmongering. I wanted to learn those extra things. And back then it was more kind of upon yourself to go and learn those things. So you had to come in early. So you come in, you go and learn those things. I'd come in 5 a.m., 4 a.m. sometimes, depending what time the butcher started. You go downstairs, you wouldn't get paid, and you'd learn those things. And then, you wouldn't finish till about 1 o'clock in the morning, and then you'd come back and do it again. And then there just wasn't enough. I just thought to myself, I might as well just sleep downstairs in the car park in my car and try and have a shower somewhere.
I mean, it just obviously made sense to you at the time. Thinking back, you know, now you'd be a mentor to chefs of a similar age who also have that hunger to learn. I mean, how do you reflect on that now?
I think it's probably one of the best things I've ever done, only because, you know, and I've had, I mean, my grandma and my grandpa at the time used to go, "Oh, you're not getting paid for it. This is blah, 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 blah." And they used to carry on. But it was too far for them. They hated seeing me going all that way. And they also didn't want me to be a chef because they just thought the job was just too hard, which back, I guess, you know, it is. It is a hard job. It's not that easy. But I guess probably the best thing I've ever done. I learned so much, and it probably has made me, and I have to say, Rockpool is probably the most best thing I've ever done in my whole career. I learned how to do so much there. And I mean, I've worked with some great chefs past Rockpool, but I think the base of my knowledge, produce, the butchery skills, learning how to, you know, pick great fish, go to the, you know, fishmongers. I'm forever in debt to like Khan or Neil and all those guys, Rodders, for being able to learn that much at such a young age. And those guys used to take me everywhere. You know, they used to take me out for dinners that there was no chance I could have afforded. And they looked after me really, really well when I was there. So it's probably the only thing, I guess, because like normally I wouldn't do, I mean, this is a little bit out of what I would normally do. Like I go in normally and I, you know, I'll create a menu, I'll work with the chefs. But I mean, Rockpool's quite a different place. Like it's not really like the chef calls the pass at Rockpool. You kind of have like, there's about 3 different passes and everybody still kind of has to like get involved and really cook. So I mean, like normally I wouldn't do a job like that where I actually have to like either work on the fish section or work on the cut or be up on the pass. But because I have such nostalgia for the place, it's kind of exciting, I guess. It's almost like a homecoming. I really actually enjoy it.
That's so interesting. I mean, this project of, you know, trying to get another hat, but when the kitchen culture is so different, like how do you look at achieving the kind of excellence that you think is a recipe for that extra hat when people aren't working in the same way as they were when Rockpool had that those awards that many years ago?
Yeah, it's very hard because I mean the discipline isn't there, I guess, like before. There's also not that level of fine of just, you know, doing more things. And I mean, we are starting to do this now, but I mean, I guess maybe back when I remember we used to do things almost too. I mean, we used to make pesto to order when Neil was there. So we would do that in a mortar and pestle and you'd make, you know, 3 ahead of time as an order came in. But, you know, when I'd got there back a couple of, maybe 6 weeks ago, a month or nearly 2 months ago, I guess, you know, I'd noticed they were like, you know, they'd pre-make the pesto or they started, there was a little bit more of that sort of like before service sort of prep as opposed to, you know, maybe like dicing things to order or especially on the larder, you know, we used to use our hands a lot. You know, we were always told, you know, mix the lettuce with your hands, taste everything. Those kinds of things, I guess, is what, you know, Rodders is trying to bring back. And I guess having people like me around just to, you know, prod and poke every now and then and be like, no, we should be doing it like this, or you could do it like that. You know, I mean, they just recently just set up the oyster fridge back to, I'm going to say back to normal, because it wasn't normal. And now I definitely think it's looking really presentable again. And I think, you know, maybe not this year, but maybe the next year, I think hopefully we'll push to that too.
Do you think there's a recipe for getting an extra hat?
Oh, I don't think there's a recipe for it, but I think there's just it's all about consistency, hard bloody work, and just having everybody on board, and everybody wanting to achieve that same goal, and just working with the best produce. And I mean, Rodney's already got a good team. They're a young team. They just need that guidance in getting there, because they are quite a fairly young team. Whereas when I was there, the team was a fairly old team, a very, very experienced team that had come over from Sydney. So it's quite a task that he's definitely pushing uphill with this one.
The other thing that's really different about your time at Rockpool and this stint is the place of Crown, and how Crown is doing. So when 20 years ago, Crown was pretty awash with money. There were lots of high rollers coming in. It was fresh. Now there is so much, such a burden of compliance on casinos, and rightly so. Crown doesn't have the shine that it once had. They've taken Rosetta, which, was one of Neil Perry's other restaurants at Crown. They've taken that space back. There's been a lot of whispering around the future of Rockpool. I mean, how does that all sit with you?
Look, Rosetta, I kind of know what's happening there. They're not. I'll just say it. If I get in trouble, I get in trouble. I mean, they're going to be gone soon, which is great. I mean, I guess a little bit, because we get to take in some of their chefs and manoeuvre them around. So we'll get some of that experience and bring that into the kitchen. And I think over there they've got some older chefs, which I think personally is quite nice to have. I think you need to have that mix of, a little bit of older experience and bring them in. But you're definitely right. The Crown Casino itself is a shell of what it used to be. And you can see that too in the covers. While Rockpool still does high covers, they definitely don't do the covers that they used to do back in the day. I mean, I know on a Monday we used to do like 280. And now I think, while they still push into the high hundreds, I don't think they sort of get to like 280, 300 on a Monday. So I think some of that definitely has to do with Crown Casino, but I also think over the years too, even my experience with Rockpool over the years, I used to love going to Rockpool even after I'd left. And then I think over the years, I don't know, it kind of changed quite a bit, especially too once Neil had sort of stepped out of it. I think they lost their... I think they forgot what the essence of Rockpool was, and that was just really simple produce, cooked simply, and served on the day. Yeah,
so interesting. So, Sam, I mean, let's broaden out a little bit, and I wonder how much what you've seen at Rockpool, just in terms of that shine going off, those lower numbers, I wonder how indicative you think that is of the industry more generally. What else, what other businesses are you in and out of at the moment, and what are you noticing?
Well, I also, just at the end of, or almost the start of the year, but the end of last year, I guess, we just opened up a Mills Cafe, which is in Pascoe Vale. And they are possibly, I think, one of the busiest places I've ever seen open. I mean, they took a year and a half to open, just due to, building faults. They renovated their old house, which was attached to the milk bar that their dad and their mother used to run, and they've converted it into a cafe. And then there was a lot of issues with the gas, the electricity, switching it over. It just was a whole debacle. And I guess like that whole year and a half from 2022 till sort of the end, till around now, like the pricing of ingredients has been insane.
So, Sam, you were, helping them with the menu and seeing these prices change. Did you have to retool the menu numerous times before you even opened?
Yeah. So, I mean, we had to. I was doing this really nice poached fish with almost like a tahini sort of sesame seed, soy saucy sort of beans. But our problem was every time we were putting things, and I focus on the beans because it was probably one of the biggest jumps I've ever seen. We were paying like $34 a box for beans, and all of a sudden it was 75. And I thought to myself, okay, well, we've got to take the beans out of this, and this, because when I create a menu, I like to use things in a lot of dishes instead of minimal, and just buying things for one thing. But I just thought that price jump is ridiculous, and if it can be like that, how can we do things to the menu that don't sort of jeopardize our food costs, but also don't jeopardize the customer experience? Because I know when customers come in, they see beans. Obviously, you want to have beans. You're going to order the beans because either it's a side or it's a part of a dish or it's in there, and you thought, okay, well, that's going to be really nice with that, etc. So my idea was, let's just change it to greens, or and then we can just swap out whatever we need to. And it can be a thing where they come and the waiter will tell them, it's, if they ask, it's broccolini today, or it's asparagus, or it's whatever's in season. Only because the price jumps are ridiculous. I've tried very, very hard to remove, especially from cafes, because I do a lot of work with cafes. I've tried very, very hard to remove all micro herbs, flowers, and all that kind of stuff from menus, because they're just getting ridiculously priced. Like $10 for a punnet of viola flowers is stupid. And the price of micro herbs just seem to just keep going up, and up. And I just don't think that micro herbs add any flavour to anything. They're cool and they're pretty and whatever, and I think they had their time, but I just don't believe that we need to be using stuff like that. And then that brings me back to Rockpool. You never go into Rockpool and see a flower or a micro herb ever. So I guess that also hones in a little bit more of me, as I used to be as a chef. So when I create these menus now, and I'm working with people, not only am I keeping in mind the cost, but you have to give or take with the look as well. I know you have to use some micro herbs. It's just a cafe thing.
So that flexibility that you're, I guess, building into menus when you say something like greens, does that flow through? That means you've got to have chefs that are a bit more nimble, that are able to make those decisions day to day or week to week, then, work out how to cook and present those different vegetables. How much of a challenge is that?
It can be quite annoying, because not all chefs like to change things every day. For me, it's great because I'm someone who gets very bored very, very quickly. But for your just average chef, who's just wants his head chef job, just wants to come in, wants to cook nice food, doesn't want to, muck around with his dishes, that can be quite challenging, especially too when it comes to maybe not having sous chefs, because I know kitchens these days are a lot smaller than they used to be. You don't have brigades of chefs anymore, especially in a cafe, and it can just get, the training needs to be there. Like cooking an asparagus to cooking beans is quite different. Seasoning them is quite different. All those sorts of little things, they sort of play on, I guess, the head chef's mind, especially too if he's really only doing it, and I'm finding this quite a fair bit, they're really only doing it because they're getting a very good paycheck these days. It's hard to find the passion in chefs these days, really hard.
Interesting. So what do you feel like your main jobs are when you walk into a business?
Right now, it's, I guess, to inspire and bring back whatever love that they originally had for the industry. So I try to come in with a lot of fresh energy. Last year I put on a business partner who works with me, and he's been working with me for about 9 years. And he was one of my apprentices back in the day. And I've put him on because I guess he knows my food more so, I guess, and he probably cooks it more so than I do. But I guess motivation and just giving the chefs their creativity back as well. Because I used to do this thing where I'd go into a restaurant or a cafe and I'd give them the recipes, I'd give them the menu, and I'd be like, yeah, this is how you're going to do it. And I've changed that quite a bit now. So I now will go in, write the menu with the chef, existing or new, and then they become more into it because it's their dishes, and then I just tweak them as we go along. Also makes my job a little bit easier.
Yeah, okay. I mean, what is it that you think has made them lose the love for the industry?
I think a big whack of it has been COVID. I definitely think that put a lot of, and I know that was a while ago, but it wasn't. I still think we're feeling some effects of it, especially when it comes to morale and stuff like that. A lot of people got hurt during COVID. I think they just weren't looked after very well by hospitality owners. But I guess you can only do what you can do as well during those times. I would say spend per head, because obviously prices are going up. And I think people are spending a lot less than they normally would. But then you're also getting those, and workers, people who actually really want to work. You got places running without head chefs or managers. Owners are actually having to work in their business, which is a great thing too, because I personally think anybody doing hospitality, they should be in their business because it just makes more sense, especially if it's a cafe. It's a little bit more friendly environment when the owner's there and everybody knows the owner, and it's a bit more, hey, I know the owner sort of thing. So yeah, working, the work ethic of people, especially, I don't want to put myself in the shit by saying this, but the younger generation definitely don't love to work very, very hard. They sit there counting the hours. So that, combined with the high rise of prices over the last couple of years, and that constantly changing every week. I mean, there was a time where you could just go to your fish supplier and go, hey guys, can we lock in the price of snapper for the next month? We're going to have that on the menu. You go to the butcher and be like, can we lock in the price of all the meat? Can we lock in the price of all the vegetables? We're going to be using this stuff for the next month. And now you can't do that because even they are getting their prices changed on them from farmers or wherever they're buying from. So I guess all that sort of stuff makes the hospitality industry quite a hard one to figure out these days. I mean, even for me, I sometimes, every time I write a menu, after we cost a dish, I'm like, geez, I wish I could put that price up a little bit more. But then you got to be realistic. You got to be like, well, maybe we can not make, 22% on a dish here, and we'll go to 28, 30% or 32% even, and just, sit a little bit high on it. But over here, we can afford to, make it a little bit, an 18% food cost or something like that. So you can sort of balance your menu out that way.
So how do you get customers, how do you engineer it so that customers will order enough of the right dishes to balance it out? Well,
that all lies in, I guess, the way that the menu is structured and having enough things, but not too many different things. Like I said, I like to, if I've got a tuna dish on the menu, for instance, I'll have it cooked and I'll have that maybe also in a poke bowl. So we'll have something raw and we'll have something cooked as well. And then we kind of just maneuver throughout the menu those ingredients, so we're not constantly buying new, and we're not doing one-use things, I guess. And I notice a lot of cafes, I mean, some of the ones that I've been working with lately, they all want to go into doing dinner, which is a great thing, because then if they're doing a very casual dinner or snacks or anything like that, you can take maybe the braised lamb from the lunch menu and put that into the dinner, and do something different with that, maybe do tacos with it or flavour it a different way. So I guess that's kind of how I sort of maneuver myself around the menus and making sure that customers can pick and choose what they like, but also a smaller menu these days too, Whereas I used to write bigger menus of 20 plus items. Now I kind of stick to around sort of 15, maybe 16 items for cafes.
Do you think, one of the, I guess, byproducts of all the pressures that people are under is that menus are safer and, and smaller. You do tend to see similar dishes in similar types of businesses all over town. Like there's some businesses that I kind of want to go and review, but every time I look at the menu, I just fall asleep. It's like, oh, it looks like a really good setting, great for that community, but I just cannot go there and make myself eat that. It's just too dull. What do you do to stop people falling asleep when they look at menus?
Yeah, all right, we'll take a Mills, for instance. Those guys, I kind of like to play on the nationality, I guess, or the backgrounds of the owners. These guys are Turkish, Lebanese, so I thought, okay, how can I make a menu that's cafe style still that they want, modern. So I took flavours from Turkey, Lebanon, some Italian flavours because I like to keep it a little bit European because that's a bit of my training as a background is that. And then, you come up with dishes like mahalabi, which is like a panna cotta pretty much. It's their version of a panna cotta. And then you do we'll do a granola bowl with a mahalabi. We'll put fairy floss on it and then we'll introduce all those other flavours. Kanefe, things like that. How can we do a kanefe without having to make a whole tray of kanefe, cut it up, crumb it and do all that kind of stuff to it, or bake a whole tray of it because it's quite intensive. His mum used to make like a really quick version of a kanefe and I'm somebody who's always learning. So I went into a garage. They have next door, because their mum and dad live next door, they have a garage right next door where their mum has a massive kitchen. And she goes, can I show you my kanefe? And I was like, okay. And all she done was pretty much make a roux with Akawai cheese, and I tasted that and I thought, okay, cool, I'm going to add a bit of the mozzarella cheese to it and a bit of the tasty plus the Akawai cheese. And then we'll pour that into a vessel. And then on top we'll put cornflakes to make it crispy, and we'll bake that through the oven. Ice cream on top, fairy floss, rosewater syrup, all the flavours that you'd normally find, but just trying to take away the effort in making it and make it new too, something different, different presentation as to what it would normally be.
Wow. Well, I'm not asleep. That sounds really good. Do you kind of think, Sam, I suppose I can see the value of you as a skilled consultant with broad perspective coming in and sort of identifying something that's integral to that family and working out a way that they can turn it into a cafe dish that they can put a margin on and that sort of seems to work out well for everybody. But do you kind of think the fact that there needs to be consultants going around town doing this, is that part of this a problem in the industry, that there are these skills or experience shortages that mean that a role like yours is required?
100%. I don't know how many times I've ever thought to myself, I was like, are these people insane? I love it because, it's like it's my whole business for the last 10 years. And I've been able to create a company out of it. But I do think to myself every now and then, I go, how are you guys opening these places and not having an idea, at least an idea of what you want to do or some sort of background knowledge on it? Because they don't get how much effort goes into planning the menu, finding the front of house, putting the place together, then, for decorating of the place, the marketing of it, all that kind of stuff. And then they finally get into it and then they're like $500,000 in the hole or $1 million in the hole, which is even worse.
Oh my God. So are there some businesses where you go in and you're like, all right, yeah, no, I can see this. There's a through line. I can tweak here and help you with that, and you're going to fly. And then are there other ones where you're like, sure, I'll do the job, but please never mention my name?
Look, there are some that I will take on board, but I have a very, very strict contract that I put in place. I will not allow anybody to mention that I'm there unless everything has gone according to plan and they've listened to everything. Because a lot of owners will go, yep, we want to do it. But then when they actually see the effort that it takes to getting there, and then if maybe things don't really go the way that they want them to, or they don't really want to go that hard on spending that much money in their business, that's when, they might not get that broadsheet write-up that they wanted. They might not get that good food write-up, timeout or stuff like that. And if they do, and I'm not happy with the trajectory where we're going, and they might be busy and they might be successful, I may not be happy with the food that they're exactly doing or the way that they're doing certain things, and then I might just withdraw from allowing them to do anything with me. Yeah. Where I will still help them, with the food costing and all that stuff, and, a little bit of menu development here and there. But then I know full well what they want as opposed to what they said they wanted.
What are the biggest mistakes that you see people make?
There's a lot. I think, look, I know chefs want big money lately, but I think I've always been, even when I go back to when I owned Long Room, if a chef would come to me and say, I want X amount of money, I'd normally just give them what they want, exactly that. And be like, well, I expect this, this, and this. I think that can be a mistake sometimes. Like maybe I understand like trying to get the chef to like work towards something. But I also find that putting all these like tasks in front of them can also be a bit of like, for a chef to like, they're like, I have to prove myself to you. Like, no, I don't really have to, especially if they've got the skill set already, which some do and some definitely don't. But yeah, not enough marketing. Marketing is very, very, very important. I think if you're going to open up a hospitality business these days, you need to put at least $15,000 aside just for marketing. And if you can push harder, I'd say go to 30. The guys at the Mills, they went hard. They didn't hold back. And if you go down there and have a look, they're super, super busy and they do well.
What do you think's the most effective sort of marketing?
I think finding the right experts. I use a company called Little Big, and I also use Raymond's comms, Joanna Raymond. I think people who are in the industry and they know what they're doing. Everybody thinks that they can just go and pay some, 12-year-old on TikTok who's got 20 million followers to go and come in and post a video of their cafe and the place is going to be super, super busy, or restaurant. But that's just not the case. You've got to find people who know exactly what they're doing. I even use Your Social Chef, Mark Coda. He helped me, like back in the early days of Instagram. He was really, really good for me. But yeah, the company I use right now is Little Big, probably one of the best. There's a little shill for them.
Yeah, well, I receive a lot of their press releases, and I will say that they do a good job in getting the word out there, and they do know what they're talking about. They've
also been around long enough, I guess, to know. Like they know people at Broadsheet, they know people at Good Food. Like there you go, you've heard of them too. So, I think, and I think all those things are very, very important. Whereas, like, I'm happy, I've got another company that I use called Boss, and it just depends on how much, I guess, at the end of the day, somebody really wants to go and push, because at the end of the day, not every business owner has $15,000 to spend on marketing. I know it can be. It's quite a steep number too, because most of the time they're asking for that upfront.
Okay, so chef, payment of chefs, marketing, what other big mistakes do you see people make?
Again, letting owners write the menus. I get having ideas from owners, fantastic, but for owners to be putting, their, things that their mum used to cook on the menu and stuff like that, like I get it, and then wanting it to be as traditional as your mum used to make it is almost almost impossible for a chef to do because he's not their mum. And I find that quite a fair bit. A lot of owners do that.
What about just like the fundamentals of a business in terms of location, how much rent you're paying, that sort of stuff?
So rent is a really, really big killer these days. Like, it's a massive, massive one. I've got one new client at the moment who's just signed up, and his rent at the moment is about $260K a year. Yeah. And he does at the moment, if his rent was maybe 80 or 100, he'd probably be making money right now. But at 260, very, very hard to make money. I don't think people really understand how much food you actually have to sell and wine, to make that back. He needs to be doing $80,000 a week.
It's just, to me, it just sounds like you're starting from so far behind when that's a fixed cost.
Because that's just a cost that's before you don't do anything for that. That's not even electricity or gas or anything. That's just straight away. Oh, I'm down $200-something thousand for the year. Straight away. The year starts and you're down.
Yeah, that's really tough. So, so Sam, you see so much, you put out so much energy into these different businesses. You got this long background in hospitality. What do you love about what you do?
I guess it's the creativity of it, and I get the chance to learn every day. I get the chance to see I work with many a chef, I work with many a managers, and I get to see things that, some things I'm like, no, I never ever want to see that again. So I take those things on and I know not to do those things. But I also see things that they do that I go, okay, well, that's interesting. I've never seen that before. Because you can learn so many things from so many different people. It doesn't matter how many years you spend in, especially in hospitality. There's always something good that somebody is doing. Even if they're doing many, many things wrong, there's always some good things that people are doing. And I like to take those things on and adapt them, I guess, to my style of consulting. And it's just not a boring job. There's always something going on. There's always someone complaining. There's always someone bitching about something.
So let's finish where we started, Sam. Is hospitality broken?
Look, I think to an extent, I think we'll come out the other end very soon. When I say very soon, maybe 2 years. I think we'll find our feet. We always do. There's a lot of competition, especially for, I guess, again, cafes, like you're saying. It's you feel like you could look at a menu and just go to sleep. I think and as bad as it sounds, I think we need to ease up on opening up cafes right next to each other and having strips of cafes, because you go down some places and it's just cafe after cafe after cafe with the same bloody menu. And I think that also impacts the brokenness of hospitality, because it's you go, well, my smashed avocado is $22 in this place, but it's exactly the same as this place next door, and then they're doing it for 20, and then someone's doing it for 19, and then they're just all playing a game of undercut, and not anybody's really making money. So I think when that sort of stops, we'll be in a much better place. And I think once we get a handle of being more creative with menus and items and the way we write menus, I think all those things will play a part in making for a better hospitality industry.
Wow, Sam. Well, thank you so much for laying it all out for us. I really have enjoyed this chat. You've got such great breadth of knowledge and experience and insight into different types of businesses, and really appreciate you sharing with us today. For anybody listening, I would encourage you to subscribe to Dirty Linen. Also, subscribe to our newsletter. You can do that via the show notes or via any of the socials of the podcasts across the Deep in the Weeds network, or just head to deepintheweeds.com.au and sign up to the newsletter there. We would love to drop into your inbox every fortnight. Meantime, Sam, thank you so much for being part of the show.
No, thank you so much again for having me, Dani. Thank you.
This is Dirty Linen, and I'm Dani Valent. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtylinen@deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta at Dirty Linen Podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.